y'all, welcome to Real Tracks Live. I'm your host, Bruce Andrews, the Executive Director of the Shelby County Arts Council, and I invite you to check us out at shelbycountyartscouncil.com. Here at Real Tracks Live today, we got a special treat. Most of y'all know him from 3 on the String, but I know him as Bobby Horton, the music historian. Ain't that right, Bobby?
Yes, sir.
Play us a tune, man.
Away from Mississippi's veil with my old hat there for a sail, I crossed upon a cotton bed to the rose of Alabama. Oh, brown rosy, rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the rose of Alabama. It sang, the lightning buggy flashed his wing, and like a rope my arms I fling round Rose of Alabama. Oh, brown rosy, Rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the Rose of Alabama. So fare thee well, little Liza Jane, and fare thee well, ye bells of fame, for all your charms are put to shame by the Rose of Alabama. Oh, brown rosy, Rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the Rose of Alabama. Oh, brown rosy, Rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the Rose of Alabama. 1846. That's an
1846.
Yes, sir.
Well, you know, like I said at the intro, a lot of people know you as a musician with 3 on the String, 40 years running.
48.
48.
48 years.
48 years running
and I'm
down the
only
road.
50, so, you know, wow, that's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Well, we can hit on that a little bit later.
Yes,
but,
sir.
You know, like I said, I know you as a music historian. A lot of people don't. But I'd say that people consider you an expert in Civil War music. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes, it would, because an ex has been a spurt is a drip under pressure. And so the answer would have to be an affirmative.
Well, you know, I think one level above an expert is somebody that's obsessed with something.
Well, I got
You're
that
pretty
going.
much obsessed with
Yes,
the
I
Civil
am.
War music.
Yes,
Tell me
I
how
am.
that happened.
Well, I grew up around World War II people. And so I realized early on, my dad, my uncles, all my, you know, like my band director, my on and on and on.
Yeah.
All the adults in my life, in my growing up life, were World War II vets, and I would get them to tell stories, and those stories were. I realized it was history.
Yeah.
And my dad took a picture. He was in North Africa in '42. He was in '43. Yeah, and he didn't get home to well after '45. You know, well into '45.
Right.
But he took a picture when the Nazi army surrendered North Africa. He got close enough to get pictures of the big shots like Montgomery, and it was one of his pride and joys, you know. And I never will forget. I just did look at that picture, and he'd tell me about. There's the, you know, this is Percival, and this is on and on. You know, tell me the names. Yeah, and of course he was just on Master Sergeant, you know, in Medical Corps, and so I remember one day I was in school, probably 5th grade, 6th grade,
Right.
and I turned to the World War II section of my history book, and I saw a picture of the surrender of North Africa. I said, my daddy was there. You know, that's history. My dad made history, and so from that, my mind's like, bing. That's
Perspective.
Yeah, and then of course the Civil War centennial happens in 1961, and I got sucked into that so big. And
How old were you then?
Well, it started when I was 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Were you already playing instruments then?
messing with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started playing around on banjo. I don't remember when I started playing banjo, and I used to mess with my dad's trumpet when I was a little bitty, and I was going to play that, and I started.
So he was a trumpet player.
Yeah, well, I never heard him because he lost his teeth and came home from World War II without these teeth here, and that messed his armature up. But I had his horn, and I was going to play, and I did. And so I was raised on Hank Williams. He listened to Hank Williams and big band, and my mom liked classical, and my grandma was a pianist and an organist at church, and my mom's father was an old-time banjo player. So
that explains a lot about you, and in specific, 3 on a String, no slaves to genre.
That's right. I love it all, man. I just love music. I love all styles. I would love to know what makes Dixieland sound the way it does. Why is it different from 50s rock and roll? Why is it different? You know.
Right.
You know, what drives it? You know?
Kind of the greater conversation here is, you know, that there's all sorts of idioms and pathways of folk music. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of, I mean, as you teach sometimes, there's no radio.
That's right.
So the way that music was passed down was through these different social circles or tribes or whatever, and in this case, soldiers.
Yeah,
right?
Okay, absolutely. You know, in fact, I just did a bicentennial thing with a symphony, and I put together this stuff. And one of the things I told the kids, we did a lot of kids concerts.
Yeah.
I said, now imagine, go with me. You know, these were 5th and 6th graders, so they're not cool yet. So they would do what I asked them to do regarding this.
Yeah.
But I said, all right, now I want you to think. I said, all right, you're going home from school now. Go in, whether you go in the front door or the back door, through the garage, doesn't matter. But you walk in, and all of a sudden, you notice something. You said, your house is dark.
Y'all doing this at home?
Yeah, but you know, your house is dark, and then it's stuffy because nothing's moving there.
Right.
There's no electricity. Well, what am I going to do after school? Well, I'm going to watch. No, there's no TV. There's no. My phone doesn't work. I can't charge it.
Had to make them.
In fact, I don't even have one. And then no CDs, no radios, nothing. Nothing. There's nothing for entertainment. And at night, you know, you're all gathered around probably a big fireplace, you know, especially in the early part of the bicentennial, 1817, 1819. And, you know, you're sitting there with your brothers and sisters and your mom and your dad around this fireplace because that's where mom was cooking.
Right.
And that's your main source of light and heat.
Right.
And then you're not going to leave this room because it's dark and spooky in the back part of the house. And you don't go outside because all the varmints, you know, it's spooky out there.
Had to make them think.
So you're staying right there. And said, you've heard all their stories. You know everything about them. So what else is there to do? Music. So it's really important to us in 2019, but it's especially important to people prior to electricity.
And there was no way to record it, so the only way to maintain it
is
to repeat it and pass it down.
Pass it down. When you get the Civil War is when the music industry really got its legs, because there was such a demand for new music, because it's such a wonderful escape. You know, during that period of time, music was used by civilians and soldiers alike in both armies, you know, North and South. To say, you know, like, this is what I believe, and I'm fired up because I'm fighting for my state. And you know, and this is a song about the folks at home. I'm thinking about them. And you know, it wasn't manly for a soldier to say, "I want to go home so bad I can taste it," because that's sissy. You know, you don't do that.
Right.
It's not manly. But you could sing about it, and they truly did. And the songwriters stepped forward. They came forward. And back then, of course, you didn't sell a recording. You had no recording artists.
Right.
You didn't sell recordings because there weren't there any. But you sold sheet music. And there was like, there were tunes that sold close to 1 million copies of sheet music.
Yeah.
I am not kidding you. And
most people from that era, if they can recall a name at all, maybe they recall, I don't know, what, Stephen Foster or something.
Stephen Foster. Oh, he was huge. He's kind of set the standard. He started in 1847.
Yeah.
Was when he had written and it was published.
You know, and I was noticing that progression you played earlier was very similar.
Very much like it. Very much like it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they were both. That was written about the same time. Both those tunes were written about the same time. And if you think about it, "Oh Susanna" was the first song ever published and was sung coast to coast.
I'll be dog.
Yeah, because they were singing it out in California when they were digging gold out there. So it was a coast to coast.
And that song had to travel by some other way.
Oh yeah. People mainly just were singing it.
Yeah.
Just singing it. People heard it.
Minstrel shows, whatever, had to pass it on.
Minstrel shows were the first. Minstrel singers and performers were the first professional musicians in the country, pretty much. You know, that made a living with it. Their people made a living with it. Yeah. And traveled around, and and of course, the primary way to travel was riverboat.
Right.
And then, of course, as the railroads, you know, go west, then really they started building a railroad network. Then they started butting heads. In fact, the steamboat people hated the railroad people, and the railroad people hated the steamboat people.
Competition?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the railroad people says, you know, we're going to build a bridge over that river that's so low those stupid boats can't get under it. And, you know, and they said, and we'll get all the business. And then the steamboat people go, you know, we knock those bridges down. They can't get on the other side of the river, and we'll get all the business. And so, and there was a compromise by a fellow named Lincoln, who was a railroad lawyer.
I did not know that.
He was, and so he worked an actual compromise that is still in effect to this very day.
No kidding.
Yes, yeah. All bridges have to be built over a river, a navigable river, that is.
Yeah.
With a minimum height on what is considered normal water.
I'll be done.
And then by the same token, all riverboats, you know, they had these real high stacks. to carry the smoke in cinders, mainly cinders.
Right.
The higher you get them, the odds are the cinders are going to go beyond your paddle wheel, not land on your boat, because you know those boats were made of wood, and those river boats burned wood, and so you had kids up here with water, throwing water on the cinders. But anyway, every one of these stacks had to hinge.
Yeah. And
it's true to this day. Delta Queen, all the boats have hinging stacks.
I did not know that.
Yes, sir. And so that was a compromise. It's still in fact. And besides, you know, these tall stacks. There's another little story about it. You want it?
Of course. Do I get it? Do I have any choice?
Well, no, I can stop here.
No, man, you're all good.
But anyway, you know, it mainly was to carry the cinders beyond the paddle wheel, where a boat wouldn't burn up.
Right.
Because the whole thing, even the hull's made of wood, you know.
Right.
So, as a fella is going to say he's up in Hannibal, Missouri, where Mark Twain is from, he'd walk down the hill, you can see the wharf down there and see all these steamboats tied up. Which one am I going to get on? He wants the fastest and the newest, because the average steamboat lasted 5 years before it burned to the ground or it hit a snag and sank.
Of that I did not know either.
That's a fact. So you want the best looking, because
it's worse than Boeing. I'm just, you know.
yeah. Well, they didn't have computer guidance.
Just kidding.
They didn't have, you know, flight controls. They had big old wheels.
Yeah,
you know.
right.
But anyway, as you're going down, you're going to see, your eyes going to be drawn to the one with the highest and the prettiest stacks.
Right.
And so, and if a boat was really pretty,
the fares.
She's really stacked. And that phrase is still used another way these days.
Y'all heard it here first.
But anyway, and I don't know how I got off on that. I apologize.
No, don't apologize to me, but I bet you have a song about a river.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, you bet I do.
You know, I'm assuming that with all this riverboat talk, they wrote lots of songs about rivers.
But I'll do it, man.
Hey, well, how about that guitar before you get started there?
Now, this is a 1927 0021 Martin. And this is a real peach. But now at the house, I have an 1857 Model 24. Which is a peach.
Y'all don't know his address, so it'd be odd if he told
right.
that. Yeah.
Anyway, but these things are so precious. They have a nice woody sound.
That's amazing.
Oh, they're wonderful. They can build a guitar. Well, let me tell you about this song, because this is an Alabama tune, 1840s as well. You know, the Tom Bigby River starts up in Tennessee and swings out into Mississippi, but it turns and gets smart, comes into Alabama. And it's a beautiful river, especially when you get below what is now the Tin Tom, with all the gravel sides. When you get around just north of Demopolis, it becomes a wild river, and it's weaves, and it's a slow current. And you get below Demopolis, and you hit these chalk limestone cliffs.
Yeah,
that are just
seen them.
Beautiful.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
You're right.
They go for several miles.
Seems like in another country.
Oh, absolutely. It's beautiful, but it's a lazy river. You know, it goes on down and it catches the Alabama River.
Yeah.
And then together they wind down. Eventually get to the Mobile River and go into Mobile Bay and then out into the Gulf. But there's no hurry to get there, you know. and it's the same pace of the people that live there because it's hot and humid. And this is a song that's written about a fellow that lived on Tom Bigby, somewhere around Demopolis, close to there.
What's it called?
Tom Bigby River Song, or the Gum Tree Canoe, because this guy worked hard all day long, but at night he would get in his canoe and paddle Julia around in his canoe.
Oh,
it's
sounds
a great
sweet to me.
song, but you can feel the pace of that river. On Tom Bigby River, so bright I was born, in a hut made of husks in the tall yeller corn. And there I first met with my Julia so true, had to row her about in my gum tree canoe, singing row away row, oh the water's so blue, like a feather will float in my gum tree canoe, singing row away row, oh the water's so blue, like a feather will float in my gum tree canoe. All the day in the field, the soft cotton I hoe, I sing to my Julia and sing as I go. Wait a minute, I'd messed that so up.
She must have been stacked.
Okay, I'm going to start that second verse. Okay, right. All the day in the field, the soft cotton I hoe, I think of my Julia and sing as I go. Oh, I catch her a bird with a wing of true blue, and at night sail her round in my gum tree canoe, singing row away row, oh, the water's so blue, like a feather will float in my gum tree canoe. Singing row away, row, oh, the water's so blue, like a feather will float in my gum tree canoe. With my hands on the banjo and toe on the oar, I sing to the sound of the river's soft roar, while the stars they look down at my Julia so true, and dance in her eye in my gum tree canoe. Singing row away, row, oh, the water's so blue, like a feather will float in my gum tree canoe. Singing row away, row, oh, the water's so blue, like a feather will float in my gum tree canoe.
That was amazing, dude.
Isn't that a great little tune?
That's just poetic.
It's wonderful, and it's got another verse. I decided I'd cut it. I don't know why, but I cut it.
I mean, when you think about it, that could be a modern song.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's got a popular hook.
It's wonderful. Well, John Hartford took that quite a few years ago.
I love John Hartford.
I did too.
Best part of the Glenn Campbell show ever.
Oh yeah, well he was wonderful. In fact, I know that he was after that show.
Look that up, kids.
CBS asked him made him an offer to be they loved his look, his demeanor, and his wonderful low voice.
He could tap dance while they played the fiddle.
Yeah, he sure did. But they offered him a role as a detective on a weekly show and offered him a scat of money.
John Hartford.
And he said, "No, I think I'll go back to Nashville and play my fiddle." That's what he did. But he and I share the same fourth great grandpappy.
Really?
Yep. We sure do.
Well, now this fascination with Civil War music and related tunes led you to some good gigs, didn't it?
Lord have mercy, yes.
I mean, what's up with this with your record with PBS? How'd those projects come about?
Ken Burns was working on Civil War, his Civil War documentary back in 1988,
like
89.
14, 15, 16 episodes, wasn't it? Something like.
Well, no, it was
was
just
like,
6
cut
nights.
up like that? Or?
It was 6 nights.
Yeah.
About an hour and a half, hour 45 apiece.
I got you.
But the editor of American Heritage magazine up in New York told him, said, "There's this guy in Alabama you need to listen to."
Really?
Yeah, and they had done a little article on what I was doing, preserving these old tunes,
Yeah.
And so Rick Burns called me one day and said, "Can we use this, and this?" I said, "Sure, of course you can." I forgot about it, and it went.
You're just glad that
At
that time, you're just glad he called. And you didn't know it was going to be a.
I had no idea, but it was I was so busy, I didn't, said, "Sure."
How much time did that consume? I mean, over the years, was that an ongoing project, or did you knock it out in a few months, or what was the deal?
Oh well, they were at the end of production. Really, I didn't get that much in Civil War.
So they had their film footage kind of comped together.
Oh yeah, they were.
Kind of laid
and they
in
had
the
somebody
soundtrack.
else playing. Most of the music's done by other people. I didn't get that much in there because
see.
they were in post production. I mean, they were almost done.
But now that wasn't your first gig writing a film score, was it?
No, I did one. I'd done some
80s or
industrial
something?
films. Yeah, in the 80s. Yeah. 84, 85, somewhere in there. First, I did a movie called Shadow Waltz, which is a nice little movie, and they had some problems with it, but it ran HBO. But I mean, it was a thrill, and I said, I believe I can do some of this stuff, know. And but anyway, after Civil War ran, Ken called me up and said, I'm working on the history of baseball. Can you play me a guitar version of? Yeah, I said, yeah. And so
did you sing it, or did you just do a musical version of it?
You don't sing.
Take me out to the ball game.
Oh yeah, I played it. I ended up doing 88 different versions of that song. From Italian version to an Irish version to James Brown's band's.
Can you give me an example of that?
Oh golly Moses! Well, I had to have a mandolin to do the Irish thing.
I mean, just cut it. Just do two different versions.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Kind of tell me what you're talking about.
Oh, well, like this is
standard.
original. This is here's the actual melody of "Take Me Out the Ball Game." I see. I've done it a long time.
I'll be dog. I've never heard the verse all like that all my life.
It's cool. I don't remember it. And then you go, you know, you do it like
more
that.
Chet Atkins style.
Yeah, more Chet Atkins, yeah. But what I was doing, he called me, he said, can you do me and I did it on classical guitar, and try to make it real pretty, you know. And I said, Ken, how much baseball are you going to cover? He said, well, we're going back to before Lewis and Clark, because there's, you know, they play ball, they play bass.
Yeah.
And the Indians played a version very much similar to that. Native Americans did, you know. And I said, so you're going to go through what? I said, 1980s. I said, well, you're going to need music from each decade. And he said, yeah. I said, well, man, I got all kinds of instruments here, and I work in different styles. Why don't I do this? I'm going to give you what you asked for, and then I'm going to take that version and put a string quartet around it, and then I'm going to do you a big band version of it, and I'm going to do you a hillbilly version of it. I'm going to do you a bluegrass version of it, do you a western swing version of it. And, you know, just so I'm going to do you a bunch of different
scored
stuff.
all this for him?
Yeah, I just went and played all that stuff, you know, and did send him about 12 cuts of Take Me Out the Ball Game. and so, man, I worked on that whole thing. I worked on that a long time.
And then what time frame was that in? About
that would have
90s?
been 90, 91, I guess.
And you were doing, and so here's my question or observation. So you were doing self-production then, weren't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I did everything in my house.
A little bit ahead of your time, weren't you? I mean, everybody, all the kids are doing it now.
Yeah. But, I mean, I had a TAC 3340 4-track recorder, me and the Beatles, you know. Yeah. And except they're really good. That's the only difference between me and them. They're really, really good.
They just shorted your paycheck. Yeah. All, you know? That's all.
But then I got a Fostex 8-track reel-to-reel.
Yeah.
Long you have to cut the tape and edit and all this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And then now I'm running digital tape. And I have a Mac, but I don't use it because I'm still running my old digital tape because it's still working. But I've done 18 projects with Ken now. I think
that's where I was getting that number from. You've done 18 projects with him in total.
Yeah.
PBS bass projects, I guess.
Yeah. And I just contribute music. They're smart. They make their own music decisions. Back in '93, they were working on Lewis and Clark, which is one of my favorites. And I was on the ground floor doing demos for them and suggesting tunes for them, you know, and maybe and like Dayton would send.
So
me,
when you would suggest a tune, were y'all in person?
No.
It's over the phone.
I was in Birmingham. So
it's over the phone.
I just mail it to them. I'd do it and mail it to them.
I see.
Yeah, or over FedEx it overnight it, you know. And it's a fascinating process. Basically, I still work with them that way now. I don't see any film, you know. They see they're different than most film companies. You work when I work for the National Park Service. I've done like 35 films with the National Park Service, for example. And they'll send you a film and it's all well done, but they have a time code in there.
You just do a music bed.
And they the film is locked, and so they're just going to put the music in there, and then they'll put the music and the sound effects in. It's hard to do, but you start to get instinctively. You get better at it, you know. So I've been doing it a long, long time, but done quite a you know, done stuff for History Channel and for A&E and Comedy Channel.
Can you play something that was an idea that you might have pitched to one of those like Ken or something that we wouldn't know? That'd be a. Oh
man, I wish I had. Yes, I could do that, and but I don't have the instrument.
Yes, you can do it, but not now.
Yeah, well, I'll give you the tune, but I put it on an octave mandolin, which was for Lewis and Clark. The theme turned out to be the whole opening scene was built off of that arrangement, and but it's this melody.
So this was being played underneath the intro?
Oh yeah, this was the intro music.
I bet everybody play it a little more, will you?
But you got to hear that octave mandolin sound. That's what
Sounds mighty pretty on the guitar, bro.
Oh yeah, it works, but this is better on that. Oh, it's been a long time. You know, but did it on an octamantle, old-timey sound, because you're talking 1803.
Right.
And so I use only instruments that were around during that time.
What about your stylings, your finger picking styling? Did you emulate? Are you emulating people, or is it just strictly classical training, muscle memory?
You know, you don't. I know what I want to hear. You know, and everybody I hear influences me, because you know I have heroes on every instrument I play.
Like who?
Oh,
on the guitar, Chet and.
Well, of course. I mean, you start naming them. You know, you flat pickers. You talking about electric guys. And,
yeah.
And classical guys.
I've seen you play with a pick, without a pick.
Yeah.
You know, every conceivable way.
Well, you know, honestly, I just kind of know what I want, the sound I want, and I bought a lot of instruments over the years because I need that sound in this situation. You know, I don't want to record it. You quickly learn to get around on it. And
your wife understands when you're spending money.
She's very understanding. She really is. I mean,
yeah,
she really.
I imagine she is by now.
She is an angel. She really is an angel.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it.
And now, I mean, I'm real. I think that's, you know, I'm happy. That's my hub, and I'm happy. You know, that hub. So everything else is hey. You know?
Yeah, that's the path of least resistance, brother.
I got, you know, the most important thing is covered in my life, and has been for 47 years.
Amen. Hallelujah. That.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting in year 40 myself. So.
Yeah, you're over your head. I know.
Yeah, I know. I kick my coverage and all that good stuff. But look, now, if I was, you know, if I was playing in a band these days, and somebody hollered out something like "Free Bird," you know, I might mildly annoy me, but on the other hand, they're hollering it out because it's a great, popular tune.
Classic. Yeah.
So, what would be an example of that kind of tune back in the day, back in the Civil War era?
Oh, well, you know, Dixie.
What would they holler at?
Well, they'd holler Dixie, of course, if they're Southern. They'd holler Battle Cry of Freedom if they're Yankees, you know, and they would holler Home Sweet Home.
So if they're Yankees, they'd holler out "Bell Cry Freedom." Is that what you're
something
saying?
like that. Or
I bet a lot of people that are listening don't know a bit of that tune.
You want to hear?
Play a little bit of it.
Yeah. Let me put this down. I'm gonna play it on the banjo. Yes, we'll rally round the flag, boys, rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. We will rally from the hillside, we'll gather from the plain, shouting the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah, down with the traitor, up with the star, while we rally round the flag, boys, rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. We are springing to the call of our brothers gone before, shouting the battle cry of freedom, and we'll fill the vacant ranks with 1,000,000 freemen more, shouting the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah, down with the traitor, up with the star, while we rally round the flag, boys, rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. We are springing to the call from our brothers far away, shouting the battle cry of freedom, and we'll hurl the rebel crew from the land we love the best, shouting the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah, down with the traitor, up with the star, while we gather round the flag, boys, rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom.
Man, you know, musician to musician, your sense of meter is just impeccable. Time, it's just amazing. I mean, the stuff you do with these, you know, the percussive stuff you do on the banjo with when you're doing solo or with 3 on a string, always just blows my mind, man. It's just fluid.
Well, you know, I could thank Greg Cox because he got a drum set when I was about 12 years old. And his sweet mama, I came over and learned to play drums in his bedroom. I fell
Did you really?
Yeah.
Is there
yeah.
anything you don't play, man? You play the mandolin, you play the...
Well, I've never played anything well. You know, that's the thing. No, I played most, you know, brass, you know.
Yeah.
I've got it has to have a trumpet, trombone. I played the tuba before, but tuba goes, mouthpiece goes from here to here. And
yeah, it'll mess you up. You're trying to kiss somebody later or something like that.
Well, yeah, well, that's...
Well, you know, people know how to, at least people who are fans of 3 on a String and know you through that vehicle, know how to get and find the music, 3 on a String. Other than that, how do they find out about this music we're talking about? How do they find out more about Bobby Horton?
Well, you can go to my website.
You got a website, do you?
Website. I do.
And
BobbyHorton.com.
BobbyHorton.com.
Yeah.
You go there and find out about all this musical history interests.
You can. You see the recordings. And
they can probably buy CDs.
They can buy CDs, and they can download. I mean, I'm on iTunes and all those things, you know. But the problem with download, I have copious liner notes to explain the song, just like I'm talking to them.
Yeah.
And when they download, they don't get that.
You ain't gonna get that in a digital stream.
Don't make sense sometimes. You know, that just makes a song come to life, truthfully.
Well, you know, I would say my addition to that would be your liner notes are usually handwritten.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you write those?
Yeah, sure.
So everybody want those. I mean, come on.
I'm going to tell you what, I'm not a writer. I'd rather get a root canal and have to write something. I mean, and that's the truth. I just can't stand writing, but I do it because you know, that's part of the gig, you know. But no, I have 10 volumes, 6 Confederate, 4 Union. The Confederate still
right.
But of the Union, 4 Unions, and I have 2 songs of faith from that wartime, in the songs that, you know, religious tunes that have a story with them. And
the songs, this will be a good way for us to wrap up. The songs that a lot of people think they're familiar with, you know, the original version, like Dixie.
Well, now the original Dixie is what people know. But the original Dixie was written by a fellow, would be written by a Southerner, correct?
Yeah,
no,
you'd assume.
He's from Ohio. Daniel Emmett.
Well, that just screws everything up.
It does, doesn't it? And you know, and he premiered the song, you know, after the Southern Confederacy formed. No, it was a year before South Carolina seceded from the Union.
They just grabbed it. This is just like
they
Alabama
grabbed it. They
Sweet Home
commandeered it.
Alabama.
But you know what? It has Alabama story. But let me carry it further. You know, and did he premiere it in the Southern city like Charleston and New Orleans and Atlanta? No, New York City.
New York City.
New York City. Yes, New York City. It was written as a walk-around tune in between acts of a minstrel show.
I'll be there.
Yeah, it's a happy tune, and it became really associated with the South.
So were the words adapted to make it more of a Southern thing, or was that the original?
No, those original words.
I'll be.
Yeah, it was just a minstrel tune.
So it never was. The original intent was not some rally cry for the Confederate troops.
No, it was basically about a man who married a woman because she had money. Mrs. Mary Wilda Weaver William was a gay deceiver, and you know that's the reason he married her, because he wanted her money.
You can't put that in current vernacular.
That's a lousy fight song for a new nation, you know, as you're trying to form down here. But let me tell you how it got the tie, and it's got an Alabama story, and this is a true story. When Jefferson Davis was inaugurated as president of the Confederate States of America down in Montgomery, there was a reviewing stand. They had a parade, and there was a reviewing stand built on the steps of the Capitol.
There's a Bronze Star there, embedded in the concrete now.
Yeah. And he was sitting there, and people were marching past, but there was a woodwind band on the stage with him playing Dixie, an arrangement of Dixie, which is in the Alabama archives. And from that day forward, Dixie was affiliated with this new nation called the Confederate States of America.
Well, we've heard the battle cry "Freedom" from the Yanks.
Yeah.
So it's only fair to close out with a little version of Dixie. You gonna play it? What version are you gonna play?
I'm playing the one that was written by Albert Pike from Arkansas. Wrote words that were about the war and about what they're trying to accomplish. And it's had a bunch of verses, but let's do 2 or 3 of them. But this is a version of a song that the common old soldier in the ranks really liked. And it goes like this. Southern see ye, country call ye, up west worse than death befall ye. 2 arms, 2 arms, 2 arms in Dixie. Lo, all the beacon fires are lighted, let all hearts be now united. 2 arms, 2 arms, 2 arms in Dixie. Advance the flag of Dixie, hoorah, hoorah. For Dixie's land we take our stand, deliver, die for Dixie. 2 arms, and conquer peace for Dixie. 2 arms, and conquer peace for Dixie. Oh, hear the northern thunders mutter, northern flags and south winds flutter. 2 arms, 2 arms, 2 arms in Dixie. Send them back your fierce defiance, stamp upon the cursed alliance. 2 arms, 2 arms, 2 arms in Dixie. Advance the flag of Dixie, hoorah, hoorah. For Dixie's land will take our stand, deliver, die for Dixie. 2 arms, and conquer peace for Dixie. 2 arms, and conquer peace for Dixie. Oh, fear no danger, shun no labor, lift up rifle, pike, and saber. 2 arms, 2 arms, 2 arms in Dixie. Shoulder pressing close to shoulder, let the odds make each heart bolder. 2 arms, 2 arms, 2 arms in Dixie. Advance the flag of Dixie, hoorah, hoorah. For Dixie's land will take our stand, deliver, die for Dixie. 2 arms, and conquer peace for Dixie. 2 arms, and conquer peace for Dixie.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bobby Horton. Join us next time on Real Tracks Live.